Okay, it's 5:30. Here we go. This meeting of the Zoning Advisory Committee is called to order. All right. First item up is roll call. Tyler?
Good evening and a happy Thursday. Polly Boardman.
Present.
Kristen DeHaan.
Present.
Christy Essa. Darren Fleck.
Present.
Natalie Geisels.
Present.
Amy Howe.
Present.
Christine Hull.
Present.
Araceli Martinez. Adriana Publico. Tyler Rogers, present. Lauren Rushing. Brooke
Present.
Snyder. I got you.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay. All right, so items for presentation, discussion, information, and/or action, public comments. So we will do, are there any public comments not related? First item. Not related to an item on the agenda.
I think we still had that first public.
Do we not have that in there? Okay.
It's not on
I'm
there.
just reading the directions. Okay.
Right?
Making sure. All right. So then, first item is item 2.01, approval of the minutes from April 21st, 2022 of the meeting from the Zoning Advisory Committee. Do we have any discussion on the minutes?
Tyler Rogers, for the record, I move for the approval of the meeting minutes from April 21st, 2022.
Okay.
Polly Boardman, second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right. Minutes approved. Easy peasy. Okay. Sorry, this agenda looks a little different this time. I'm getting a little lost because it's got the attachments in between. Sorry. Okay. So here we are for the big show. Item 2.02, discussion and possible action on changes to the attendance zones impacting Elizabeth Lenz Elementary and Ted Huntsberger Elementary School and Brown Elementary School effective for the 23-24 school year. This is for possible action, and I believe it's our fourth time talking about this particular topic, just keeping track. So, Adam Searcy, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Adam Searcy, for the record, Chief of Facilities with the school district. Hey, thanks for coming all the way up here tonight. It's good to see everybody. It's a nice night. This is, I believe, the fourth time we've talked about this proposed action, and you know, there's sometimes almost an infinite number of variations to discuss. So there's a few new wrinkles this evening. I'll dive right in. Just as a refresher, the slide 3 is an illustration of our existing conditions, maps, enrollment zones. For everybody that might be new to these meetings, we like to depict our existing elementary school boundaries with these blue lines, our existing middle school enrollment zones with the colors, and then you can't really see it very well on this map, but the existing high school enrollment zones are delineated by these dark gold lines. So these are the existing enrollment boundaries. You'll see a couple of new labels, Fallen Leaf Condos, Arrow Creek Apartments, Innova Apartments. Those were items of discussion last month, and we wanted to kind of highlight them for later this evening. Again, just getting your bearings. Slide 4 is the same enrollment zone boundaries, existing enrollment zone boundaries, just over an aerial image. So you can see Wolf Run Golf Club. You can see a little better illustration of these major roadways, Arrow Creek Parkway, Zolezi Lane feature prominently in some of our options. And then on this slide, it's a little easier to understand where I-580 kind of splits between this South Park, whatever it's called, South Reno Park, and the Summit Sierra Mall, and those Innova apartments are on the other side of I-580 from these schools. So that's what slide 4 is telling us. And then slide 5 is really what we're motivated here to discuss, are the existing and projected enrollments of these two schools prior to any action. So we've seen the same information, and we've seen that the enrollments and the existing and projected overcrowding at Lens is really what we're here to try to improve upon. Okay, so again, more familiar information. We've got a number of areas with the current elementary school students in each area highlighted on slide 6. This looks the same as last month with the addition of this area A3. We talked about it last month, but based on the feedback, we went back and generated some additional options for consideration. We'll see later tonight, and we'll refer to those when we refer to area A3. These are the Innova apartments on the sort of east side of I-580, then north in between Mount Rose Highway, which is here, if you can see my cursor, kind of Virginia Street to the north and east, and then I-580 kind of marking those in. Right now, this area is zoned for Lens. So area 1, area 2, this is divided by Wedge Parkway between A1 and A2 and the current students. And then area B, we've been calling it for a couple meetings now, up here between Zolezi and the enrollment zone for Hunsberger. This area is up for consideration. You'll note also, and then you'll see this in future slides, the current enrollments at Lens Elementary coming from area B and area A2 are coincidentally the same. And so you'll see that kind of play out interchangeably a little bit as we look at the numbers. Obviously, they're very different neighborhoods geographically. So largely a reorientation for the group. On slide 6. On slide 7, this is some new content. I think we've talked about this in concept at the past couple of meetings, but hoping to get a motion and a action from the committee tonight, we wanted to be sure to include this, that if we do make any motions, I think the staff recommendation would include, we'll call it a cleanup. These are some irregular existing boundaries that zig and zag between individual households and cut right down the middle of streets. So we've talked about this frequently. We'd prefer not to have, neighbors walking out each other's front doors, looking across the street at one another, going to different schools. So you'll see these proposed B0 and A0 lines would be, in certain scenarios, recommended to go along with an overall recommendation as a cleanup to redraw those boundary lines on like rear property lines, for example, rather than front yards. So anyway, we'll talk about those as we go through the options. So that's really the warm up. And now slide 8 also, I guess technically is mostly a recap here. Options A1, A2, and B, really we've been through with you guys in meetings past. We've been through other options with you guys in the past. We say, hey, A1 to Hunsberger only, say option 3. A1 to Hunsberger only is really not a feasible option because in that scenario, Lens remains over capacity for most of the rest of the decade. So kind of for completeness sake, we showed all of these additional options 3 through 7 that have been analyzed, and then just a brief statement as to why these really are not feasible options. But areas A1 and A2, moving from Lens to Hunsberger, and then also, as we mentioned, interchangeably A2 and B are the same size enrollment-wise. So A1 and A2 from Lenz to Hunsberger, or A1 and B from Lenz to Hunsberger, both provide significant enrollment relief to Lenz through the next decade and can be accommodated by Hunsberger. Okay, so that's what this whole table, summary table, is telling us. We'll look at the maps on this, and then we'll see the actual enrollment numbers on the next couple of slides. So this is sort of just an orientation slide on slide 9, depicting the existing boundaries, just to reorient yourself. And then option 1. So we tried to do the back and forth. If you guys prefer this. This is existing, and this is option 1, where we're moving area A1 and A2 down here on either side of Wedge Parkway, sort of outside or south of Arrow Creek Parkway, existing condition, pulling them into Hunsberger out of Lenz. And the only change to B would stay in Lenz, with the very small exception of the B0 option to streamline that existing boundary line. This is option 1. And then similar from an enrollment standpoint, but different geographically, you see on slide 11, we're still taking A1 into Hunsberger, but not A2. So that Hunsberger-Lenz boundary line in option 2 is redrawn on Wedge Parkway. So in area A2 stays in Lenz. Area A1 moves to Hunsberger, and in option 2 here, area B moves from Lenz to Hunsberger. So that's what it looks like on a map. And this slide has both option 1 and option 2 as far as a current and projected enrollments. So you can see the existing scenario on the top, option 1 and option 2, they're essentially the same. They're identical initially, and then as you go out years, the total number of houses dictate that the numbers vary slightly. But you can see very well balanced between the two schools enrollment utilization-wise going forward, right in the mid-80s percentile for both schools all the way through the end of the decade. And really the difference between these two is just geographic. When you look at, are you moving area B into Hunsberger or area A2? So any questions on those? We've basically seen those before. But moving into some A3 options on the next couple of slides. 13 does something similar. Again, we're going to see two options that are most feasible that include area A3, and they're just variations between B and A2. You can see some of options 10, 11, and 12 that really don't either relieve enough overcrowding or put the overcrowding into Hunsberger. So we showed those for completeness, but really option 8 is the same as option 2 with the addition of A3, which was the Innova apartments that are sort of like landlocked between the major roadways, moving to Brown Elementary School. They're currently in Lenz, A3 to Brown. So option 8 is the same as option 2 with area A3 going to Brown, and option 9 is the same as option 1 with area A3 going to Brown. In both of those scenarios, it provides additional overcrowding relief to Lenz, albeit only 20 students or something like that who are living in those apartments currently. So it's modest. It certainly can be absorbed by Brown. It provides a little bit of additional breathing room to Lenz, and we wanted to model that based on the discussion last month. So that's sort of the summary table. We'll look at the maps really quick. Again, this is just a reorientation slide on slide 14, existing conditions, and then looking at option 8 on slide 15, you can see we're bringing area A1, or let's start at the top. We've got area B going into Hunsberger, area A1 going into Hunsberger, leaving area A2 in Lens, but then area A3, it doesn't really show up that obviously on this map. It kind of, you know, just because of the way the lines are drawn on the major roadways. But this area A3 here, this triangular area with these Innova apartments, would actually be a part of the Brown Elementary School zone in this scenario. So similar, option 9 looks like this, where instead of moving area B into Hunsberger, we're moving area A2 into Hunsberger. It provides an almost identical amount of student balancing between the enrollments. And also on option 9 here, we're taking the Innova apartments in area A3 over to Brown. And then of course we're doing the B0, you know, cleanup of that B enrollment boundary here. So you'll note we've got this listed as our staff recommendation. Couple of points on that. I mean, obviously it provides essentially identical enrollment impacts as option 8. You know, I think it's really going to come down to the discussion of the committee as to whether or not option 8 or option 9 are preferred. You know, this option 8 has, you know, I think some knowledge of this community kind of having this tail on a map. I don't want to get into, you know, just looking at a map as to whether or not this area A2 is more well connected to Lens rather than B being connected to Hunsberger, et cetera. We also wanted to note that the distribution of these 3 apartment complexes in particular is a little more distributed, right? And that's not a driving factor in our analyses, but it was sort of a coincidental point that we wanted to just take note of. And then of course we do prefer the either options 9 or 8 with the inclusion of area 3 to Brown. I did have the transportation department analyze the impacts. I know there was a lot of discussion on that last time, and ultimately there's a lot of variables in play with transportation even in the best of times, but they were able to confirm to me in writing that all of these scenarios, including options 8 and 9 involving area A3, would be neutral from a budgetary standpoint. It of course would involve revisions to the routes, but it all would be absorbed within existing drivers and existing routes. It would not require the addition of a bus or an additional route, any of these scenarios. So they're all provide excellent overcrowding relief and balance. You can see on the final slide here, 17, you've got the existing conditions up top or on this upper slide. There's an asterisk on this one worth noting. You can see that Brown Elementary School is added to this. Of course, these are reflective, these projected enrollments are reflective of the zoning action that this committee took and the board approved associated with the opening of the new elementary school to relieve Brown in the 23-24 school year. So you can see what their current projected enrollments look like, and then in the subsequent tables you can see what the impacts associated with the movement of area A3 in both of option 8 and 9 would look like to Brown. So ample opportunity for Brown to absorb those students. That provides that much more overcrowding relief to Lens, and then Hunsberger actually remains the same as it looks in options 1 and 2. Okay, so that's really a wrap on the presentation. Again, I think we've got a number of good options. We've received a lot of good input and discussion from the public as well as the committee. I want to close with an expression of appreciation for you guys coming back out here. We definitely did here at last meeting, and then leading up with some public comment in writing to this meeting. If folks would seem to appreciate a decision so they can make informed choices going forward. So we're able to host this meeting with your guys' support, and we think we've come up with some great options for consideration. Again, the option 9 would be the staff's recommendation, but obviously some numerically equivalent options for you guys to consider. And that's all I have. Open it up to questions and discussion. Thank you.
All right, who wants to jump in and go first?
Do you want to do public comment first or after the discussion?
We usually do a discussion, then public comment, then discuss again. Hopefully that's the right way. Any thoughts?
I've got a question. Thank you for all the additional options and considerations, Adam, as usual. As you're going through that area A2, I'm curious if that is that considered possible for Brown? The tail is indeed kind of concerning to me as well. And I'm sort of looking at this as like with area B versus B0. B, as it's defined, it's clearly like a walk zone sort of opportunity for a Huntsberger, as I'm seeing it. So I think there's interest that I have of like going B versus carving out B0, but I'm trying to then balance out the folks that are in A2 that are sort of far to the south and then going into Lynn. So is A2 an option for Brown, or is the fact that 580 is right there is like a clear dividing line for Brown?
Yeah, my 2 cents on that. I'm trying to do some mental math on whether or not they would fit in Brown. I think you'd probably get there as far as 34 kids in area A2, but that I-580 barrier kind of stuck out to me as a pretty big differentiator between A2 and A3. That's just my gut reaction.
And one follow-up, the difference between 8 and 9, how did you guys land on sort of that B0 versus carving out more of B, going to Huntsberger between 8 and 9?
I think we talked a little bit last time about breaking up area B or creating some sort of different options in B. And really, it's challenging, first of all. The subdivision itself is not that, it's relatively compact. There's not obvious boundary lines within it. And then if you did really try and split those hairs, it was sort of a insignificant number of residences or existing students. So the B0, we looked at this a couple different times. There are a couple of students who would be potentially affected by that, but we basically tried to make the smallest possible adjustment here while still redrawing that boundary line on a more logical alignment. So if you're able to zoom in on this, or maybe I can bring up another map. This is, instead of being on the street, I don't know if this is Field Creek or something like that, but it's on the rear property lines between houses that front different streets. And then this little zig and zag here, these streets all front off of Thomas Creek. So we went behind on these rear property lines and back out to the existing boundary line. So trying to make B0 as logical or clean as possible, a change from the existing, but as minimal as possible as well. We didn't see an obvious sort of, B.5.
So I think Tyler brought up a really good point. So just on the map, a lot of the bottom side of that border of B really does look like it could potentially be a walkable However, I know that the geography up here is not quite as simple as it looks on a map because we've got larger property lines, we've got really large streets. Is it possible for some of those students to walk? And not because I'm saying we want to get rid of transportation, just because I know a lot of elementary families do enjoy the process of being able to walk to school in the morning. And so I'm just curious if that is a walkable, or I know that there's some construction going on next to Sage Ridge, so I'm not sure how much that would interfere with that area.
So just to remind the group, all of Area B is currently bused to Lens or provided transportation. They're outside of the walk zone, I believe, but the barrier of Zolezi
Right,
is something that we're not asking students to walk across.
for sure.
I don't believe, so when we calculate walk zones, it is along, not necessarily roadways, but improved or maintained access roads. So while there might be, I believe some unpaved trails across some of this Forest
not.
Service land, that would
That's not something we would consider.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So from like some of these houses here, they'd have to come out of their neighborhoods onto Thomas Creek and up to Hunsberger from a calculation standpoint. When we're saying, hey, how far are you from the school? That's how they do their calculation. That
Right.
said, a portion of B would be within the walk zone. So we would, depending on how you look at this, be turning residences who receive transportation services currently to residences who would not receive transportation services currently.
Okay,
But from a district standpoint, there's still going to be students in Area B in either scenario who provided
still get
transportation.
transportation,
So
okay.
it's a wash from the district standpoint. It's just more of a subtlety about, what this community might prefer, or what this committee might
okay,
feel would be best for the community.
okay.
Polly Boardman, I wondered about that same thing, because of it looked like a trail and the imagery behind it. I get what you're saying, you don't use the trails, but, I'd be interested in public comment on that area. It does seem like logistically closer to Huntsberger. That's why option 2 looked pretty good to me until we got here, and then I'm like, well, now I'm confused, but I liked that idea of B going to Huntsberger just because of proximity to the school. But
So that seems like a good opportunity maybe to start our public comment, and then we can keep discussing.
Pablo Nava Duran.
Good afternoon. So my name is Paul Nadua, and I hope you'll have a rough day, but this is a good tonight for zoning advisory committee. So I like the good job for MCSA for pointing out, because I think the option 3 to 7 is not feasible, and 10 to 12 is not feasible because of overcrowded situation. That's a very good job. So option 1 that include A1, A2, and B0. So B0 and A0 does make sense. So you have to try to make a neighborhood sidewalks to become more Euro 5, and also the more walk zone to Husberger for B0. And for option 1, A1, A2, and B0. And I think A1 is 100% moving support A1 and B0 to Huntsberger for now. It's up to their parents. I want to get their parents' voice opinions for that. And for A2 is to move it to Huntsberger. That means they will get vegetation regardless of their amount they walks to. So, and then for area 2, B0, that more benefits of to move from Lynn to Huntsberger because they're mostly on the walk zone, and more to walk zone makes sense. So now up to A1 and B. So B to Huntsberger, it does make sense. So A3 to Brown, it seemed like very more balanced. So the problem is on the map, I think if you move to brown, I think like we need to fix the area, the empty land from Penns Valley up to brown. So you want to break the rule for the islands, create islands for them. So you want to clear us out. And I think if every parent who lived on this one wanted to rezone to brown, I'm okay with that. So I'm support A Brown to Huntsberger. So I will support A3 to Huntsberger. That their opinion, yes or no. And then for area A2 and B0, that's up to them. So pretty more balanced. So thank you for doing that. So.
Thank you, Pablo. Do we have any other public comment?
One more. I didn't get a last name, but it just says Kate. If I can get your
Hi,
name
Kate.
before
Thanks.
you leave.
Hi. I was kind of late, so I didn't.
Could you let us know your last name? We just have to mark it for
Sumauskas,
public.
Sumauskas. Okay. I was kind of late, so I didn't I didn't get, I'm kind of looking at this, at this map and trying to figure it out, what exactly what's going on here. So which parts of this map are going to be going to different schools? Are we taking anything from Huntsberger and moving to Brown and Lenz? Or we're adding to Huntsberger? Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, I guess that's it. That was my only question. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So just a recap on this for everyone who's here. And Lenz is severely overcrowded. They are out of classrooms, and Huntsberger does have some space. And so we are deciding which neighborhoods to move. We have some pretty irregular lines in this area. So we're not only cleaning up the lines, but we're also balancing out the two schools. So and this starts for the 23 school year, not this fall, but we would like to make a decision tonight because there are some families that have already requested the potential for variances starting next year to the Huntsberger. New principal, no longer interim, but the new principal of Huntsberger. And several families have kindergartners starting and wanted to get moving. So that's why we're making some decisions tonight. So do we have any other discussion?
Can I just read the names of the email
Oh,
public
yes,
comment?
please. Sorry, thank you.
That's right. You got emails from Joe Morabito, Alicia Roney, Lindsay Fina, and Jacqueline March.
Did those get forwarded to us? Did they? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Kristen DeHaan for the record. In option 9, the fact that the 3 apartment complexes are each going to a different school, that seems like a good idea to me because with apartments, they fluctuate and you're never sure how many kids are going to be there because there have been some apartment complexes I've been in when there are tons of kids and other times just a few. So if all 3 of them suddenly had an influx of kids and they were all going to one school, that would cause the same problem that we have now. So I like that.
Darren Fleck for the record. This is for Adam for all my questions last week or last month about the left turns and everything out of the intersections. I'm just going to go strong with I think number 9 is fantastic. I worry about breaking up the northern part was B. I worry about breaking up B. It's so close, plus the, like Christine said, with the lot sizes and the roads, some with sidewalks, some with not up in this area, that even though it looks a little weird having Huntsberger right there, I'd like them going to Lenz, and then it just takes out that far southeast corner away from Lenz, balances out Brown a little bit, and then that entire area along Pyramid Highway north of the freeway. is just simplified, which I think is good. I appreciate the cleaning up those lines and everything, and I think option 9 is the simplest, most logical answer just to keep things simple. So, thank you, Adam.
Do we have any other comment?
I'm still just curious about walk zone, of like the walkability. We've heard there's like Forest Service land.
Yeah.
Does anyone here know anything else about like, because there is a line, the original line was drawn on purpose or with something in mind. I'm just curious if anyone has any more information about like it not being walkable.
Yeah, maybe could we go back to the slide with the terrain on it? So just, and maybe Natalie can help me kind of fill in here. So if we were to come out of Marcy Hers, right, on this side, we've got Huntsberger across the street and then Sage Ridge. And then really it kind of dead ends right now because Sage Ridge is building some additional buildings. And so that's really where B that's kind of the part of B. So on the map, I think it looks really close, but yeah, there's not a lot of sidewalks. There's definitely not connected roads necessarily going down this street right here in front of Huntsberger. It pretty much dead ends at Sage Ridge. In fact, I think there's like a huge fence right there right now. So that part's not walkable. And as you can see, I mean, look at how large this campus is, and it's a huge hill. So I wouldn't say that it's walkable. Maybe some of those homes, they could definitely walk through the Forest Service land, but I think what Adam was trying to say is that the district wouldn't consider that walkable, and we wouldn't expect those children to walk.
That's helpful, and I think I just want it on the record that we've thought through that because it is so close, and so I think that's important for us to call out.
Yeah. Natalie, am I?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's a hike.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't live here, but, you know, I've studied the terrain and I've looked at maps enough, but I don't know how many people are huffing it from this neighborhood up to Huntsberger, especially on stuff like this.
No.
This is all, you know, U.S. Forest Service property largely and dirt trails. You'd have to be pretty darn ambitious to.
Looks like rattlesnake country.
I mean, it's beautiful Forest Service, Northern Nevada hiking country, but I don't know about third graders every day.
All right. Anybody feel like making a motion? Sounds like we're there. Darren, do it.
I make a motion to adopt option 9.
Lauren Rushing for the record. I second the motion.
All right. Do we have any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I will take a vote. All in favor of option 9, say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay? Motion passes. Option 9 will be presented to the Board of Trustees next week, I believe. All right. Great job, everybody.
It will be presented next week on the 24th.
Thank you.
We submitted stuff early, kind of vague, and so Adam will get the PowerPoint ready and we'll submit it tomorrow. And Christine, Adam, and I will be at the board meeting on Tuesday to present this to the board as your recommendation to them. So thank you all.
And then, sorry to interrupt, I just, you know, a good bit of the motivation was to communicate to the public. So I don't know if you have a sense of how that might transpire, but, you know, through Connect Eds or other mediums, we'll strive to get this message out to the school communities before summer break. And of course, just to reiterate, this is actually, will officially go into effect pending approval, not next school year, but the 23-24 school year. It's really just about the notification to the potentially incoming kindergarteners and whatnot to make an informed decision.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Item 3.01, public comment, general public comment.
Pablo Nava Duran.
I want to say thank you for the zone advisory committee. You make a wide decision on option 9, which is staff recommendation. And I have not seen one parent comment about the situation, but it seemed like option B2, you make perfect clear because there's a hiking trail over here. It seemed like it is not feasible for walkable for a little kindergarten to a Huntsburg. If this one were if they were in high school, that will be walking, so that would be fine. But for the middle school, 5-year-old, or 6-year-old, 7-year-old, I don't think so. So, so have you read the This Is Reno debunk chapter Fat Don't Help? So if you haven't read it at my article, my first article has such rights submitted by me. Cool. And then also, so I did not make hats, so I wish this is my favorite. So I too expensive to go to Disneyland. So actually, so I want to give me 1 second. I got a present for Adam Seriously. Here we go.
He has a present for you, Adam.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy Public Work Week, Adam. So, and I want to say congratulations, have fun in the summer. Oh boy!
Thank you so much, Pablo. All right, so we do not have a specific date for next year, but we will not be meeting in June. So our next meeting should plan for August, and we will see you all. Have a wonderful summer, and this meeting is officially adjourned.